Welcome to today's where we're going to talk about unfoldment. And I was just saying to Tricia, I don't even know why I picked that topic. I don't really like it. And the great thing about picking it was it inspired me to do a little bit more meditating on it, feeling into it, and exploring the topic. And the reason why originally we were going to talk about unfoldment is because when we put a desire out into the world, we want to have it fulfilled, right? And so, and of course, we want instantaneous gratification because we're, humans on this everything in 30 seconds or less world. But there is a grace to unfoldment and there is a beauty to unfoldment. So one of the reasons why we decided to talk about that today was to kind of dig down a little bit deeper around unfoldment. But like I was saying to Tricia, it's not one of my favorite words. I don't know, Trish, how did you feel when we talked about starting with unfoldment?
To me, unfoldment is I like it. It's graceful. I feel it as graceful as this gently moving process that always surprises us.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Because in our minds expect this logical progression of things, and then I do this piece, and then this happens, and we expect this logical progression of how things are going to go, and that's not been my honest experience of my developing awareness of my divine self. It hasn't been progressive and step by step, and A happened and then B happened and then C happened. It's been kind of its own process and coming at me sometimes through surprises and unexpected places, and not the order that I have lined up in my notebook of what's
Right.
supposed to happen.
I think that's
So
quite
I
profound.
like
Yeah.
it.
I think you're totally nailing it as far as that the clear unfoldment of mystery and surprise and delight that you couldn't have plotted because you're not, you don't have that bigger picture. We have our human ways of going about things, and then there's the divine way that is like it's so much fuller and great and filled with mystery and beauty and unexpected joys that we can't plot. And so, I think then when you're in that flow moment, unfoldment is quite beautiful. It's like row, row, row your boat gently down the stream instead of, hack at it and hack at it until you get almost nowhere.
Right, right. And then again, we get constantly, I find for myself, it's about not getting caught in my habits and patterns.
Right.
And that's really, if you want to call it work, that's the work, is catching myself um, with an expectation because this is what happened last time or 10 years ago or whatever. And so I my mind plays out this pattern that's going to unfold. And then the unfoldment part is these surprises come in. There's a person shows up in my life with something unexpected, or someone who's been in my life that I didn't expect shows up with something that opens it up, or my cats do it, or right, or yeah, or nature, something outside happens. Um, yeah, so it's, again, I'll say the work part for me is recognizing and becoming aware of when I'm in my pattern and making a choice to not be,
Right.
to be in the present moment and see what shows up in the present, not what I'm projecting from the past.
Right. And, when I was journaling, that's exactly what I realized is the reason why I didn't like unfoldment was because of my fears around it not unfolding the way I would be comfortable with, disappointments that I might have experienced in the past, or doubt that I'm even in a grace process. And if I were to pick the thing that is that, like what you're saying about the present moment, is getting to pick that it could be enjoyable, getting to say, hey, wait a second, Laura, that habit or that belief you had before doesn't have to be true now, and it certainly doesn't have to pave the way for the future to be that way either, because we are powerful creators. And if you have that habit of worrying that it's not going to unfold the way you want, you're kind of aligning more to that, instead of, I'm so excited to be in the flow and I'm on the path of enjoyment. I put that as my intention for joy of 2024 and beyond. So why wouldn't I be on a magical journey of a graceful unfoldment, of a playful enjoyment, and a mysticism that is satisfying. It never even dawned on me that the unfoldment path could be satisfying and deepening and all those wonderful things, because I'm so busy in the habit, like you're saying, of worry and managing and shoving and making sure and protecting and resisting, all the boxing.
Right. And the other thing that I think is necessary is the ability to not see it as dualistic: good, bad, right, wrong. If it happens this way, it's good. If it happens that way, it's bad. That's an important thing about being able to just be present. Is it's a non-dual perspective. I'm just, the way we talked about our word joy, I'm experiencing joy not because of anything, just because it's there.
Right.
And that's what I want to tap into, is that joy, and not because of anything.
Right. Then you're free. Then
Right.
you're not managing something to get to joy. You are joy. You are enjoying it, both in the moment and the process of unfoldment. Brilliant. Thank you for bringing me back to that, because I do. That's one of my patterns is, good, bad. I fall into dualism so unconsciously and so effortlessly. It's embarrassing to admit. But yes, if you could be in the present moment with a breath and say, this too is part of the all of it, which is really very mindful, very I see the journey, because I think I said I found my journals from like 30 years ago, which is so crazy to see where I was then and how some of the patterns are still the same, but I have awareness around them now, that before I was just like way out in left field of it felt like I was in the deep end trying to swim to shore. I feel much closer to shore now about dealing with my patterns.
That awareness that's the wedge that starts to break us free from those old patterns, those vasanas, as they say in Sanskrit. That's where it starts. Once I become aware, then I have choice.
Totally.
Matter.
Right. And if you take a breath and say, what am I going to choose? Or even just, I'm open to a new choice that is around joy, the intention. I'm open to seeing the beauty in this moment. Even that gives you a new, fresh perspective.
Yes. And my teacher, Rod Stryker, really talks about and encourages, don't shy away from what you feel is dark stuff. Don't shy away from it, because again, that once you become aware of it and conscious of it, then it no longer has that power over you, because now you have a choice. I can go back to that and feel that way, or I can choose not to.
Totally. That's where our power is, our creative power. It is our creative superpower, choice. And then where we put our attention, I'm going to choose to be in that enjoyment place instead of the dark was information. That's all it is information.
Right.
It's sometimes can be intense, but it is a piece of information. I liked what you shared. I don't know if you're willing to talk about it, but about this, a lot of times we think unfoldment is something we kind of have to just tolerate to get to the end. I was saying that I wanted, a big part of my journey is around enlightenment. And I was saying to my spiritual chiropractor, as I like to call her, Dr. Carrie, I was like, oh, fine, I'll do whatever I got to do. I'm just here to get enlightened. Like I'm like trying to go through my to-do list about enlightenment. And I realized, oh my gosh, I'm not enjoying the unfoldment. I'm just in a checking off boxes mode. And I think that happens with anything we put on our, New Year's resolution list. Is we're about getting it done. We're not about realizing it is done and then enjoying the process of unfoldment as we get to done.
Right. It's somehow that once we get to that thing, everything will be better or fine or not as much work. And of course that can't happen. We've got to go through it to get to the end. I think the difference is, I used to look at that and say, well, okay, I got to go through it means I've got to experience the pain of going through it.
Right. Learn the lessons and struggle to prove my worth so that I can get the big holy grail of enlightenment.
Right. And now I feel it's just a process again of what we've been talking about. Unfoldment means I have this new thing to look at, and again, then make that choice about. I have found that, again, the willingness to go into shadow is there, because I'm conscious now of that the outcome is always such a relief, and it doesn't have to be a painful process like maybe it was when I first started thinking about it. And it was because my thought was, oh, this is going to be a painful process. I created that. I created a painful process.
Well, that's the unquestioned assumption. And I think as we talk about over the course of these podcasts, how many unquestioned assumptions are just, some would call those beliefs or habits that have become agreements. And I think one of the biggest agreement for me or unquestioned assumption is that I am bad, that I was born sinful. And now I'm spending a lot of time trying to earn my way out. And there's so many, we're pummeled with assumptions and things, this is the way it is. And then from a soul perspective, they're like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about there, Laura. That is just not us. That's not us. Us is beauty and unlimitedness and playfulness and magic and magical and all this stuff you agree to. Okay. But on some level, that's what we're trying to forget, so we can remember the truth of who we are. And we talked about this before, but I think it's really important that we stop notice the unquestioned assumptions, which are hard to do because they're unquestioned and they're assumptions, so they're in there.
Totally agree. Lovely. Yeah. So I did want to read something this morning. So I have from the book For Lovers of God Everywhere by Roger Housden. It's Poems of the Christian Mystics. And this particular one is from St. John of the Cross. And it's, what is grace? What is grace? I asked God. And he said, all that happens. And then he added, when I looked perplexed, could not lovers say that every moment in their beloved's arms was grace? Existence is my arms, though I well understand how one can turn away from me until the heart has wisdom.
Oh. Until the heart has wisdom.
Right. So the keeps coming back to thinking from the heart, feeling from the heart, coming back to the heart instead of the head. In Buddhism, small mind versus big mind, that
Right.
part of us, yeah.
Well, that unity place versus the duality place, the place where you are embraced in the middle of all things. I guess from like, it's that Christian poem, Jesus, the footprints one, where, there's trouble, or Jesus, there's two sets of footprints, and then there's only one set, and the walker was like, "Where'd you go?" And Jesus was like, "Well, I was carrying you," the footprints in the sand. And I think we're always in the middle of the embrace, and it's when the heart gets wisdom to go, I am in the middle of the embrace, that you can relax and enjoy the unfoldment, the grace of the unfoldment. I think that for me is it's been one of the hardest parts of my life journey, is trusting that, in that fundamental love, I guess, is in that fundamental that it's all okay, you're okay, everything's going to be okay. That was a very foreign concept to me for much of my life. It was not sure if it's going to be okay, better manage the heck out of it so I am okay. And by the way, just in case, don't trust it because it's probably not going to be okay. And that made unfoldment this whole spiritual path really extra hard for a long time. And on the other side of it, I see that it's all my heart getting the wisdom, my heart learning and opening just a smidge more and just a smidge more. And so I guess I want to say to everybody listening, I totally honor the journey of the heart that, gets a little crack open and a little bit more and a little bit more, so it can embrace the wisdom.
Right. And the other thing too is it's always a choice for us to do that. And that's an important thing for our thinking minds too, is what draws us to that is having experienced it. It's I want that. I want more of that.
Yeah, right. And thatness, once you courageously go there, that's when the unfoldment journey becomes, you can relax, your shoulders can relax, because you're on a love path versus a fear path, I guess is the most clear way, simpler way to put it. The fear path is kind of the human way, the way we've earthed it to this point. The love path is the one we're creating, and it's the one we're, like you said, choosing. And if you're listening to this podcast, and because we're doing it, we're choosing the love path, the love wisdom path. We have to be. There would be no, I'm done with the fear path. I don't want to do that one anymore.
No, that one's exhausting.
And exhausted.
It's exhausted. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We've run that one for millennia. Boring. So done with it. So I guess for the purposes of us being together today, so what are we really saying? How would we sum up the things we just said?
I would say that unfoldment is grace, that it's unpredictable, and all it requires is for us to be present to it.
Yes. And from my perspective, it is that unfoldment could be a joy-filled process and not a fear-based, that we can step into it knowing that we're getting into a deeper experience of our presence and a deeper experience of the love energy. And also that, as our hearts get that wisdom, we realize we're always in the embrace. And when you're in the embrace, the journey is fun. it's easier. It's more rich and full and unexpected in a beautiful way, not in a fear-based way.
Right. Because if we've lived most of our lives doing stuff in a fear-based way, we haven't experienced a process happening with grace and joy.
Right. And now we get to choose that. And from my perspective, as we are on this 2024 path of joy and abundance, the year of abundance, we are choosing the joy path. And it's okay to choose the joy path.
I'll say yes to that. Swaha.
Okay. Swaha. Swaha.
Swaha.
Okay, everyone, have a great week. And just notice when you are at that choice point, choose joy and let the unfoldment of the joy path find you as much as you are desiring it. That's the beauty of, that's where it gets exciting with unfoldment.